to another segment of the program, and that's the way it was. The program sponsored by the Plymouth Historical Society in conjunction with the state's sesquicentennial celebration in Wisconsin. We're being filmed tonight in the museum, the Plymouth Historical Museum, located in the Plymouth Center. And our guest for this segment of the program will be Ed Wegner, and assisting in the interviewing will be Greg O'Hearn. Welcome to the show, and that's the way it was. And Ed, when I think of aviation in Plymouth, I think of Ed Wegner. You have been flying and building airplanes for a long time, and we want you to share that experience with us tonight. And when you told me a few months ago that you had built 11 airplanes, that sort of blew my mind, that one could do that in a lifetime. And we have a picture of the airplanes that you have built on the easel here, and these you have all built.
Yeah, these are just some of the airplanes that I've purchased, rebuilt, and most of them were resold, except the Spartan and the Fairchild. Those are the last ones. Those I keep.
And the double winger. What did you call it?
The Spartan C3.
The Spartan C3.
Yes.
And that's the one you fly all the time over town. I see you. It's not buzzing your shop, but
so that's it. Okay.
That's it. Okay, and it's a blue and yellow plane.
Yes, it's the only Spartan C3 flying
in the whole country.
Yes.
Wow.
How many were made?
They only made about 100, and there's 3 of them left. The other 2 are in museums.
Okay.
What kind of age is that airplane?
It's a 29.
The 1929.
And I've now owned it 40 years.
40 years. Okay. You feel very comfortable with it?
Yes, very. I'll take it anywhere.
Why was that plane built? Was that for barnstorming and?
It was built in the late 20s, strictly for pilot training and transportation.
Oh, okay.
That's all they had.
Okay.
Then in the early 30s, they went into monoplanes, cabin monoplanes.
Okay. So before they had the closed passenger type of planes, I think of the Ford Tri-Motor. Is that a couple years after that?
Yes, that was in 26, 27.
Okay.
Where would that airplane have been built?
It was built in Tulsa.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Now, when did you start flying? When did you first go up? When did you do your solo?
I learned to fly at Kohler Airport.
Kohler?
A lot of people don't know actually where Kohler Airport is. It used to be across from, on Y, across from the Wood Lake Market, where the entrance road is into the parking lot.
Okay.
The manager there was Melvin Thompson, and he also flew for Governor Kohler in the 30s. And he stayed there until the early 60s when the airport was closed. And at that time, Sheboygan County Memorial Airport was established in the town of Falls. And it was dedicated July 28th, 27th and 28th in 1962. The original manager was Harry Chaplin.
Oh, okay. From from Plymouth.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we can go back a little bit. The first airport in the county was on the south side of Sheboygan. A lot of people don't remember that, and that was run by the Bratz family. And the Bratz family at that time also was part of the Kohler Company. They were engineers in the Kohler Company. Later on, there was an airport north of Sheboygan, the Walrath people. That was a private. Yes. And Grandpa Chaplin started an airport right here in Plymouth.
Okay.
It's called Chaplin Air Park.
Okay. And where was that located?
That was just, where Wolf's.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
There?
the Jeep dealer.
Northwest of Wolf's.
There's actually there's a subdivision out there.
Yes, there's a
named Chaplin's
subdivision now,
Airport
Chaplin's,
subdivision.
Okay.
Chaplin's
Oh,
Airport,
okay,
yes.
that's based after the airport
Yeah,
then. Huh?
that used to be airport. I was there quite a few years, and when I got a larger plane, a Fairchild 24, I had to be very careful of coming in over the woods because the runway was not that long.
Oh.
And that is the yellow one up there. That picture was taken out at Chaplin's Air Park.
Okay.
And Harry Chaplin ran it at that time, and also helping out there was Clyde Kaiser.
Oh, okay.
How was it that these airports kind of came and went? I mean,
Well-
there was a Kohler Airport, there was one in Plymouth. I assume it's something to do with the economics of it, but what happened?
I think mainly was the building of the new county airport.
Okay.
That was a giant step for the county. And since then, Charlie Meyer is the current manager, and the current fixed base operator is Jeff Magnus, and they're just doing a wonderful job. By the way, Sheboygan County Airport is the fastest growing airport in the state.
In terms of flights in or
Flights,
out?
expansion
transfer
programs, executive type
Right.
aircraft.
So we're going to see more and more air travel in Sheboygan,
Yes.
which will benefit Plymouth. It has to benefit
Yes.
Plymouth on it. Now, you were in the, you came into the, or went into the service near the tail end of World War II.
Yes.
Tell us what
Well,
you were flying
yeah.
and what your experiences were there.
Prior to that, going into service, I worked at Kohler Airport. I think that was 42 and 43. And then in 44, I went in the cadet program. And the cadet program lasted 2 years, 44 and 45, and then the war ended. And we were just flying Stearmans, and they quit the program, and then we got discharged. I tried to re-enlist in the regular Air Force, but at that point, they didn't want any more pilots. They had too many to begin with. They were downsizing the entire Air Force.
What were you headed for in flying? What would you have flown?
I was signed up for P-51
P-51, the old
Yeah.
Mustang.
All right.
Mustang.
Right.
When you talked about a Stearman, was that a trainer?
Yes,
Okay.
it's very much like the Spartan. only a little
bi-wing?
bit- little- Yeah, bi-wing,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Okay. And did you fly the P-51s?
I never got to fly P-51.
It's a beautiful sound to it, isn't
Yeah.
it? You can hear that
The,
for miles away. They hear that P-51 noise.
the closest I got to flying anything similar was when I acquired this only model Spartan 12 that was built after the war, and they only built the one. And a friend of mine in Tulsa found out that they were going to destroy it. So I went down and picked it up, and I flew that a couple of years. That had a 500-horse engine and it had a red line speed of 210 miles an hour.
That was very fast.
Yes,
Very fast.
for 1946. Was a wonderful flying airplane.
How did you end up with the single airplane made of that type? How did that
I mean,
happen?
the Spartan
Right,
12?
Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine found it. He
Okay.
used to work at the school, and he found out that it was up for grabs, or they were going to destroy it.
It was an older plane then, or?
No, this was the only one ever built.
Okay.
And then, what's the speed of your bi-wing, that Spartan
That-
that you're flying now? When I see you
Yeah.
go over town at
Normal cruise is 100 miles an hour,
100 miles an hour.
and it uses about 12 gallons of gas an hour. And I have a range of about 3.5 hours.
Right. Now, you go to the EA program every year, as I recall. You're a loyal follower of that. Do you fly your plane over there?
I fly back and forth every day.
Okay.
We get some of us get a non-radio waiver.
Okay.
That means we can use the exhibition runway to land in the morning, and after the air show, we hold a little yellow card and take off and go home. So normally I'm home by 8 o'clock.
Okay.
And you don't have too bad a parking
I
troubles there?
always keep the same parking spot, yes. Yes. Depending upon the weather and to which airplane I will take.
In Plymouth, who were some of the other pilots with airplanes, in the 50s and 60s, during your
Yeah.
lifetime?
Well, there's
Elsner's?
quite a few of my old friends have deceased,
Okay.
but we used to fly a lot with the Kaiser boy's father, Clyde.
Okay. And did Elsner's have a plane too?
The
right?
Elsners, yes,
They had an airplane?
Alan,
Okay.
and Wayne. Wayne lives in Sheboygan, that's the other son.
Right.
He has a nice airplane.
Okay. Has there been any air accidents in the Plymouth area that you recall? Or anything?
No.
We don't want any, but-
One that I can recall, that was that Learjet that flipped. I forget what year it was.
Is that all
It
there-
was a hot day, and the guy tried to pull it off the ground too soon, rotate too soon, and it just flipped over, and both people got killed.
That was at the
That's
county.
the only,
That's at the county airport.
yes.
Okay. The age that we're talking about here, or the period when you were a young boy in the 30s and so forth, that was somewhat the end of the barn storming period.
Barnstorming days.
Touring, and do you recall any of that? Was there any shows like that coming to Plymouth where people would stand on these double wing and
Well,
wave to the crowd, so to speak? Did that happen here?
I don't think so. The only thing I can remember is Melvin Thompson from Kohler remarking that he used to give rides at the fairgrounds in the field.
Okay.
But I don't think there were really any stunt
Stunt flying. That's-
flyers in this area that people have talked about.
Okay.
And you talked about, obviously, you bought a lot of these planes and restored them or refurbished them and then sold them. Where did you do all this work?
I have a little shop basement across from the body shop.
Okay.
Do the work there, the component parts, and then I take them to the airport and assemble them out there.
All right.
Okay, so that's the way it's done. You don't have one gigantic building or
Yes.
hangar. You just
How long would it take you to do that? And was that part-time or hobby, or how did that work for you?
Yeah, it was a part-time hobby, really. It was self-supporting
Okay.
because it was a separate part of, it didn't interfere with the business of the auto body. Normally, a recover and a rebuild, probably like the Spartan originally, took about 2.5 years. And I have since recovered it, of course, because this was done in 58, 59, and 60. So it has a second cover on it.
When you say cover, what
that
are we talking about?
fabric?
Is
Is
that
that a
Fabric,
fabric?
yes, yes, Dacron, dope, and then urethane
Okay.
as the finish.
And then that just deteriorates, I
Yes.
imagine, over a period of time, even though the
Yes.
plane is hangared
Yes,
inside.
always. This one here was
American
a
Eagle?
20 American Eagle. That one took a little longer. That took about 4 years. And that won Grand Champion in 1975 at Oshkosh.
Oh,
Wow.
There's a little story to that. I flew it a couple of years, and a flying circus wanted the airplane bad out in Athol, Idaho, in their flying circuit. So I sold it to them, and they had it about 9 months, and they had a hangar fire and lost 9 airplanes
and that
in a
was
hangar
one of them?
fire.
And that was one of them?
Yes.
Now, is there, even though you lose a plane in a fire, is there enough structural components to rebuild that?
No. There's absolutely nothing left because they had a P-51 in there they had just acquired 2 weeks prior, and all that was left was a molten hunk of aluminum.
Nothing there.
Yeah.
You had talked a lot about the history of aviation, and it's obviously a big story, and you said there was really a lot of it in Sheboygan County. What are some of the highlights as you would see it for, aviation in Sheboygan County?
As of today, you mean, or the past?
Over your lifetime.
Huh?
Over your lifetime.
Okay. One thing comes to mind. I don't know if a lot of people probably remember Steve Whitman. He used to be a race pilot.
With Whitman Field in Oshkosh?
Yes.
Okay.
I remember when he had a forced landing north of Plymouth. I think it was near Rhine Center.
Okay.
And he misjudged a little bit and he flipped his little racer. That's one of the things I really remember, because Steve and I were fairly close friends, and he was really a swell guy. And we went out there and flipped it over, took the wings off, and he hauled it back, and a couple weeks later it was back in the air.
It's a vacuum. Right.
One other thing too, what Steve tells me, he was flying home from somewhere in the southern part of the state, and all of a sudden he heard a little thing, and he didn't pay any attention, and all of a sudden he smelled gas, and somebody had taken a pot shot at him, and it had punctured the gas tank, and he was very lucky to make it down in a field, and he just patched up the tank and went on his way.
Right. In your flying experiences, you said you were licensed. How old were you when you?
I was 17 when I got my license.
First
Yes.
license. So you've had your license 50-some years then?
Yeah.
Do you have a number on that license? You get the same number every year?
Oh yes, it's a relatively low number.
You don't want to share that number with us?
I think it's 3008
Yeah,
30083.
There's more behind you than ahead of you. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking at that. Have you had any? Have you ever been in a situation where you've had to come down more quickly than you'd like in a forced landing situation?
Yes, not really life-threatening.
Okay.
I've had a valve go out on one and landed in the field. We had a crankshaft break in the Spartan, landed in the field. Then I've had a land in a field and didn't know where I was. But,
How far have you flown some of your airplanes?
well, the Waco, I ferried out to California. The fellow out there wanted it, sold it there. That's the furthest I've ever been in an old airplane.
That was an experience going over the Rockies, huh?
Yeah. I go down to Tulsa, down to Bartlesville, Oklahoma twice a year, because we have some real nice fly-ins there. That's about the furthest. It's 625 miles.
Does your wife share your enthusiasm for flying?
Her limit is about an hour.
And how about your son? Does he have the
No,
same?
he did take some flying lessons, but he's got too many other irons in the fire.
Sorry. Okay. Have you taken any training for flying other than flying, but as a mechanic? When you're talking about rebuilding these planes or building them, you've got to have a tremendous amount of knowledge on all components of the airplane. How did you acquire all this knowledge?
Well, when I did work at Kohler Airport, that's what started it. Mechanical-wise and recovering airplanes. And I was, at that point, I was more interested in the flying part. But after the war, some of these airplanes were available, very reasonable, and I started picking up some of them.
Okay.
And a good friend of mine who passed away, Chuck Alberry, he really instigated a lot of things in helping me along with how to do certain things. And as you go along, you pick up different things. You read manuals and...
And there's even seminars being offered at EAA today, isn't
Yes.
there,
Yes.
on various aspects of plane maintenance.
Yes.
It's very helpful.
Yeah, the EAA does a wonderful job as far as teaching the young people the basics of structure and airframes and so forth.
Of the various airplanes that you have owned and flown, what is your favorite and why? Was that a fair
As far as
question?
flight characteristics,
Sure, okay, let's start with
oh, the
that.
Fairchild by far.
Okay,
The red Fairchild that I fly.
okay.
Yeah.
And why is that?
It's so stable, it's economical, and it goes 115, 120 miles an hour. Of all of them that I've ever had that had the best characteristics was the Spartan, of course, because it was the trim system, the horsepower, 500 horse. You could go fast, but it chewed a lot of gas.
And that was the determining factor of selling.
Yes,
right?
yes.
How many airplane manufacturers were there around over the years? I mean, was it hundreds, or, I mean, because I don't know anything about airplanes, but, you know, other than maybe Piper Cubs and Cessnas or whatever, but how many airplanes were around in all these years?
In the late 20s, there were a lot of them. Most of them were either merged with Cessna, Beech,
Oh, okay.
and Piper. They're the ones that ended up with, but there were very, very many different types. I got books at home that show maybe 100 different types in the mid 20s and late 20s.
And our parts for these older planes must be very hard to achieve today, or a car?
Most of them you can make,
Okay.
or if you can't, a machine shop can make them for you.
So that's how they're perpetuated
no.
today.
The only thing now, to a point, is engine parts.
Was there any airplane manufacturers in Sheboygan County? if
No.
you recall?
No.
Was nobody assembling them
no.
or making?
There never were any airplane manufacturers. Like years ago, there were car manufacturers, you know, like the Falls Motor Company and some of these. But what some people did do in the mid-20s was buy an airframe and put their own engines in, whichever
It's like a
engine
kit,
they wanted.
huh? Like a kit.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't really a kit. It was a complete airplane, certified, but they could put their own engines in.
Was there anything outstanding about Plymouth during World War II as it relates to aviation? Is there anything
Well,
that brings your mind?
I think the Civil Air Patrol was quite prominent.
We had a Civil Air Patrol here
Yes,
in Plymouth?
here and at Kohler Airport.
Okay.
Yes.
And what was its function, or what was its role? What was
The Civil Air Patrol just patrolled in case of emergency. If there was a problem somewhere, or
It'd be like on searches for search
Yes.
and that type of thing, communication? And that, okay, okay. You still do a lot of flying?
Yes.
How often do you fly it?
how often?
How often are you flying?
Every week.
Every week?
Oh yes.
Year round?
Yep.
That keeps
Just
you
about.
sharp.
Just about. Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, this is going to wrap up this segment of the program, and that's the way it was. Our guest in this segment has been Ed Wegner, who has had a lifetime love for flying and building and restoring and selling airplanes. It's one of the best kept secrets in Plymouth until this show. We want to thank you, Ed, for sharing your life experiences with us. And,
Thank you.
Greg, likewise,
Thank you.
Yep.
assisting us in the
Yep.
interview. And you can stay tuned for these segments and find out when they'll be shown on Channel 3 by calling the Channel 3 office or watching for the schedule in the Plymouth Review. And please stay tuned for other segments of the program, and that's the way it was.